So they shut down Al Jazeera and also confiscated the equipment of U.S. news agency Associated Press, because it's not about just targeting Al Jazeera. It's about targeting any media outlet that is a threat to the narrative of the state of Israel. There is this ambition by the Israeli government to control the media. This is something that is very real, and it has been demonstrated in a recent article that was published by Haaretz. And the article has something that is quite revealing, and it really shows, it really bespeaks a government conspiracy at hand within the state of Israel to control the news media. So here's the article. It came out today. Inside Netanyahu's master plan to dismantle the freedom of the press in Israel. Now you can say, well, this is all just sensationalism. It's all just a bunch of nonsense. It's all just alarmism. It's garbage. It's just an attack, a smear campaign on the state of Israel. Well, this article was written by an Israeli journalist, an Israeli journalist, and it's published by an Israeli publication. So you can't say that this is some sort of anti-Semitic conspiracy or anything like that. But the article does have some quite telling information that does bespeak an ambition by the Israeli government to control the media. So it talks about this channel in Israel that's very popular. It's called Channel 13. Channel 13. You see, in Israel, there's Channel 13, and then there's Channel 14. In Channel 13, you have more liberal-leaning, left-leaning, if you will, media. And then you have Channel 14, which is very, very right-wing, very pro-Netanyahu, very pro-Likud. And I took the time to watch some of the content that has been published on Channel 14. And none of it really surprised me because it's typical right-wing Zionist rhetoric. There's a lot of elation being expressed upon watching homes being destroyed in Gaza or watching people being butchered in Gaza. I saw one episode where some guy was saying, yeah, we need to kill 50,000 people in Gaza. One guy was saying, yes, I love war crimes. I love war crimes. They're amazing. I love it. I love it.
חס וחלילה, פשע מלחמה זה אני, אתה רגל על הגב. פשע מלחמה זה אני מודה, אני אגיד את זה פה, לא אכפת לי שירדו עליי, אוספים פה חומרים. אני לא נרדם טוב בלי שאני רואה בתים קורסים בעזה. מה אני אעשה? עוד בתים, עוד מגדלים, שלא יהיה להם לאן לחזור. אגב, בתקופת התנ"ך גם היו זורים את האדמה במלח. הם צריכים לזכור עם עמלק. הם צריכים לזכור את זה להרבה מאוד זמן. אי אפשר להגיע לאיזה הסדר מיד. סליחה, זה רק אני. זה פשע מלחמה.
So on Channel 13, you will see investigative journalism exposing the Netanyahu government. On Channel 14, you see a lot of schizophrenia, a lot of lunacy, people talking about how much they love watching dead bodies. And yeah, that's Channel 14. So Channel 13 is hated by the government. Channel 14 is loved by the Likud. So that really shows you what type of a party the Likud is. It shows you the sinister nature that lies within the Israeli government. Again, none of this is really surprising because for decades, really for a very long time, there has been this insidious spirit within the Zionist movement that is murderous. It's always been there. I'm not saying every single Zionist is that way, but there has been this movement within Zionism. There has been this movement amongst Jewish people that is very supremacist, murderous, cynical, and sadistic. So anyway, Channel 13 had this show that was hosted by this guy named Raviv Drucker. And Raviv Drucker is an investigative journalist who has been exposing the Netanyahu government. He has been doing deep investigative journalism on corruption within the Israeli government. And recently he did a show showing corruption within the transportation ministry in Israel, and because of the show, the police got involved and actually started investigating the transportation ministry. So there is an interest to have this show removed, and that's what happened. The show actually got canceled. And so it says here on social media, the news spread like wildfire. The management of Israel's Channel 13 announced the cancellation of its most popular and highly rated news and politics talk show, hosted by veteran investigative journalist Raviv Drucker. And so it says here that Drucker is widely known for his forensic and critical approach towards Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu and his government, and has published multiple investigative reports on government corruption, including exposés of corrupt behavior by the prime minister, who is currently on trial for corruption, accused of unlawful attempts to influence media coverage relating to himself and his family members. So Netanyahu is very interested in controlling the news media, and this is shown by really this paragraph right here. This to me is the most telling paragraph in the entire article. The entire article's message really hinges on this paragraph, because look at what it says here. Because it could be argued that, well, yes, Channel 13 said that this show was removed, it was canceled, blah blah blah, because the guy who runs the channel wanted it removed. And you could argue and say, well, the channel has the right to remove a show. But here's the thing: the guy who owns the show is a man by the name of, or the guy who owns Channel 13 is a guy by the name of Len Blavatnik. Blavatnik is a multi-billionaire. He is also a dual American-British citizen. His last name is Blavatnik. He comes from the Soviet Union. He's an Israeli, but he's also American. He's also British. It's all quite confusing, really. But this guy's a multi-billionaire, and Netanyahu told him to buy Channel 13. Now, why did Netanyahu tell this guy to buy Channel 13? Because Channel 13 is critical of Netanyahu, and Netanyahu wanted this guy to buy the channel so as to change the politics of the show, to change the politics of Channel 13, the broadcasting network. And it says here, highly relevant to observers in the US and UK is the fact that the owner of Israel's Channel 13 is Len Blavatnik, a dual American-British citizen. Blavatnik admitted in a police investigation that he had acquired Channel 13 after a request from Netanyahu, who contended that the channel leaned too much to the left. This channel is too critical of me. Damn it, buy the damn thing and change the politics of the channel, because we cannot tolerate criticism of me, criticism of my party, criticism of my government. This is Israel. Now, Israel is touted by all these sycophants in America as the only democracy in the Middle East. And sure, Israel does have democratic characteristics in its politics, but at the same time, there is this underlying agenda in Israel to make it into a Jewish despotism. This reality is becoming more and more clear every single year. I mean, hell, they had this giant procession in Israel. They have it every single year. It's the victory procession to celebrate Israel's conquest of East Jerusalem from the Arabs. And this time, when they had the procession, there were people saying, "May your villages burn, death to Arabs, a good Arab is a dead Arab." I mean, they've been saying stuff like this for years, but it's becoming more and more in your face. Well, the people who support those lunatics screaming that violent rhetoric are people in the Netanyahu government, are supporters of Netanyahu. So it's very insidious. It's very ubiquitous. It has spread like a cancer. But you have people in America saying, "Oh, Israel is this democracy. It's the only democracy in the Middle East." And yet you see stories like this. You see stories like this where Netanyahu is working deliberately to control the media so as to prevent the media from criticizing him and from exposing him. And here is another excerpt from this article that I want to show you guys. This is also quite telling. Since this Netanyahu government took office in late 2022, the ruling coalition has stuffed the legislative pipeline with laws that target freedom of speech and seek to curtail the freedom of the press in a cynical attempt to hold on to power and withhold from the public critical information about the actions of their elected officials. This trend has intensified after the Hamas attack of October 7th and the ensuing war in Gaza under the state of emergency that was declared. So there has been this state of emergency in Israel, and because of this state of emergency, they're using this whole situation really to impose controls on the news media. And it says here that the coalition is introducing a series of laws that gives the prime minister the authority to shut down media outlets that are determined to pose a threat to state security. A few months ago, and I've talked about this before, they used an executive order to close down Al Jazeera's broadcasts in Israel. So they shut down Al Jazeera and also confiscated the equipment of U.S. news agency Associated Press. They shut down Al Jazeera, and people said, well, Al Jazeera, it's a Qatari-run media outlet, blah, blah, blah. Who cares? They're a bunch of terrorists. We can't allow that. Israel should not allow this media outlet to be in its country, blah, 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 whatever. And I said this when it happened. I said it when it happened. I said, this is just an incremental step towards the government controlling the media in Israel. They shut down Al Jazeera. Who's next? They're going to try to shut down Haaretz. It wouldn't surprise me at all. And people were saying, oh, it's a terrorist-backed media outlet, so who cares? Well, is AP News, let's go back to the article here, is AP News also a bunch of terrorists? Because it says here that the Israeli government confiscated the equipment of U.S. news agency Associated Press. The act was later reversed after a pointed rebuke from President Joe Biden. So America said, hey, Israel, you can't do that. That's one of our own. That's not Al Jazeera. We're not Qatar here. That's not a terrorist media outlet. What are you doing? Why are you confiscating the equipment of the Associated Press, AP News, one of the biggest news outlets in the world? Because it's not about just targeting Al Jazeera. It's about targeting any media outlet that is a threat to the narrative of the state of Israel. And the narrative has to be that Israel is heroic, that Israel is the only democracy in the Middle East, that Israel is a bastion of democracy, that Israel's freaking perfect. Let's just be real here. They don't like criticism of Israel. And that's why they don't allow journalists to go into Gaza, because they don't want journalists exposing Israel. They don't want any sort of journalism going into Gaza saying, hey, look, we've seen some pretty horrendous stuff here. They don't like that. It's not a bastion of democracy. And they're going to go after Haaretz. Haaretz is the most popular media outlet within the state of Israel that is critical of the state of Israel. It is by far the biggest media threat to Israel because, Al Jazeera says something, who cares? They're Al Jazeera, right? They're backed by Qatar. Who gives a damn? I don't know. CNN says something, they're Americans. They're American liberals. They're obviously going to be critical of us. But Haaretz says something. A major news outlet within the within the nation of Israel, and an Israeli news outlet that is ran by Jews is critical of us and is telling the world that Israel has done war crimes, is telling the world that Israel has horrendous corruption. We can't allow that. It's the same thing with the Goldstone Report. The Goldstone Report was this report that came out after Operation Cast Lead, which was an operation done in Gaza in the years 2008 and 2009. And the Goldstone Report detailed war crimes done by the Israeli government in Gaza. Now, there were a whole bunch of other human rights reports that came out exposing Israel as doing war crimes in that operation. But the world paid attention to the Goldstone Report. Israel paid attention to the Goldstone Report. Why was that? Well, because Richard Goldstone, the one who wrote the report, was a Zionist. And not only was he a Zionist, but he was a reputable jurist from South Africa. So a reputable judge from South Africa, who is also a hardcore Zionist, is telling the world that Israel has been doing war crimes. That's damning. Now, Human Rights Watch says something. Who cares, right? They're always critical of Israel. Amnesty International says something. Who cares, right? They're always going to be critical of us. Who gives a shit about what Amnesty International has to say? The UN says something. Who cares, right? The Al-Mazza report says something, or who cares? Saudi Arabia condemns us. Who cares? Some Democrat politician says something. Who cares? but a Zionist who is also a reputable judge, which means he knows how to gather evidence, he knows how to effectively demonstrate evidence, has come out and has said that we have done war crimes, we have to pay attention, because his reputation, his credentials, his profile adds so much more weight to his words. And Israel got involved. And there was an entire campaign to shut down and to silence Richard Goldstone. And eventually Goldstone came out and said, well, I was wrong about, I was basically wrong about certain things, blah, blah, blah. But he was simply acquiescing to the pressure. That was the bottom line. He was acquiescing to the pressure. So Haaretz says something. Haaretz saying something has much more weight than Al Jazeera saying something. And that's why Israel, the right wing in Israel, wants to shut down Haaretz just like they want to shut down, just like they want Al Jazeera to remain, shut down. Now check this out. Netanyahu supporters are investing extravagant amounts of time and resources to blacklist and smear and incite against journalists, frequently filing slap-style liberal suits against critical journalists, calling the liberal Haaretz an illegitimate media outlet, as well as accusing it of publishing lying, defeatist propaganda, and dubbing independent TV channels Al Jazeera, intimating that they identify with the enemy and thus potentially putting a target on their back. So they see Al Jazeera like they see Haaretz, although they probably hate Haaretz even more than, not probably, they do hate Haaretz even more because Haaretz is ran by Jews. Al Jazeera is ran by Muslims. Okay, we don't like them, but we're not going to say that they're traitors of the tribe because they're not part of the tribe. Al Jazeera is part of the tribe. So they are traitors to the Jewish race. They have much more viciousness and anger towards Haaretz than they do Al Jazeera, obviously. They shut down Al Jazeera. Al Jazeera is not Jewish. They shut down Al Jazeera. They confiscated the equipment of AP News. AP News is American. This is not about going against Al Jazeera because Al Jazeera is backed by Qatar. This is about silencing dissidents and silencing criticism. And they see Haaretz as an enemy media outlet. And there's some more I want to show you guys here. Check this out. There's some more I want to show you. There's this guy in the Israeli government. His name is Shlomo Karhi. Shlomo Karhi wants to control the news media in Israel. And in fact, he wants to set in place basically a panel of people, most of whom would be appointed by the government, who would regulate, really control the news media. And so it says here, a plan by the communication minister to rework Israel's media. This is from the Times of Israel, by the way. So this is not Haaretz. A plan by the communication minister to rework Israel's media market will include vesting a government-influenced regulatory panel with the right to impose hefty fines on media outlets, according to a legislative memorandum. Previewing the upcoming communications law, broadcasting, the legislative memorandum is a necessary step ahead of submitting a ministry-sponsored bill, etc., etc. So it says here, Communications Minister Shlomo Karhi said that the plan is intended to open up the media market to competition and includes allocations of taxpayer money to sponsor the creation of new content. And by that, what they are really saying is that they want to take away funds from Channel 13 and then send more money to Channel 14. Channel 14, which is a far-right news outlet that has all sorts of crazy rhetoric, including people saying how much they love war crimes, how much Israel needs to kill more people, and how much they love watching Israel bomb Gaza. Yeah, you can watch the clips for yourself.
מה זה אומר, לפגוע באוכלוסייה?
אין חפים מפשע. זה בדיוק שאתה אומר אוכלוסייה, אין אוכלוסייה. יש 2.5 מיליון טרוריסטים. ולכן אין משמעות להקש בגג. עושים הקש בגג כדי שחף מפשע יצא. ברגע שבעזה אין חף מפשע, אז אין טעם להקש בגג. כי כולם טרוריסטים.
אז מה זה אומר, להרוג את כולם?
וזה תפיסה. עכשיו, מה זה אומר? יש משהו מוגדר בשעת מלחמה שנקרא שעת חסד. זה אומר, חשוב מאוד, 10 שעות הראשונות של המלחמה, מה אתה עושה? זוועות והכל עשו, היינו צריכים להוריד 50,000 עזתים. ואת זה אני לא אומר פה ב-14, גם אמרתי ב-11, וגם אמרתי ב-12, וגם אמרתי בכל במה אפשרית אמרתי, לא מכיוון שעכשיו פה 14 אני אומר את זה, בכל במה
איך להרוג 50,000?
מטיסים מטוסים, 4 גלים, משטחים.
אנחנו לא שורפים את הכפר, אנחנו מוחקים להם את הכפר וצריכים לשרוף להם את הכפר. לי מותר להגיד את מה שלא...
אבל חשוב להגיד בעניין הזה...
לא, משה, הרצינות שאתה מתייחס באמת לאיזה דיון. זמר שר שישרף לכם הכפר, כל העולם עולה באש, אוקראינה הרוסים שורפים אותה, באפריקה שוחטים. אבל משה כהן היה חשוב לו שבישראל חס וחלילה מישהו לא יוציא את המילים.
יש גם קו אדום. אני רק מזכיר לך שביידן הציב לנו קו אדום וזה 30,000 פלסטינים. 29,990 הוא עובר. כן, ידידיה לסיום, בבקשה.
30,000 כל יום.
לסיום, רק...
So it says here that earlier in July, Karhi relaunched his plan to shutter media watchdogs and replace them with a government-appointed council imbued with the authority to levy large fines on news outlets. So they want to put in place a regulatory panel that'll control the media, and they want to have the power to impose large fines on news outlets. It's all about controlling the media. And we hear all this nonsense in America about how Israel is the only democracy in the Middle East. And Netanyahu spoke in Congress today, and I watched some of it, and they gave this thug a 5-minute long standing ovation. I'm sitting there watching this thinking to myself, am I watching Congress or am I watching Kufi? Is this Congress or is this a night to honor Israel hosted by John Hagee? I mean, which one is this, really? It is so absolutely insane, guys. It's so insane. They sit there and treat this guy like he's some sort of a prophet, like he's some sort of God, as if he's some sort of a messenger from some sort of a perfect utopia. The guy is a thug who wants to control the media in his own country, who wants to silence criticism of him in his own country, and yet he comes to America, gets revered, and really gets his ass kissed by everyone in Congress. I mean, his ass is just covered with the lip prints of everyone in Congress. It's sickening. And they give him a 5-minute long standing ovation as if they're in a church service that's hosted by John Hagee. And they're praising him. And the reality is that this guy is a thug who wants to control the media in his own country. That is the reality. That is the reality. But of course, they want to whitewash all this. They don't want people to see this. They don't want people to know the reality. They want people to think that Israel is perfect. Well, thankfully, we have outlets like Haaretz exposing this nonsense. And that's why they want to destroy outlets such as Haaretz and others like it. Israel is not a bastion of democracy. Israel is quickly deteriorating into a nation of despotism, Jewish supremacy. That's what Israel is deteriorating into, and it's sickening. Anyway, guys, you just heard some theology. God bless.